Sex shop and sex workers of Reddit. What are some of the best examples or clients not knowing how anatomy sex works? Close enough. My friend works as a pharmacist and says a guy came in once looking to purchase Plan B the morning after pill. He then asked her to explain when he should ingest it because he planned to have unprotected sex that night. This made me laugh so much, but still, guy has got the spirit, just needs some educating. First one that comes to mind is having to explain to a gentleman that the reason his wife doesn't enjoy toys probably has something to do with the fact he was cleaning them with Clorox wipes beforehand, and numerous explanations that anal beads are not ripcords and your partner likely isn't a lawnmower. BEYBLADES. I don't know if this counts, but I once had a gay man call and explain that after having anal sex, his butt started feeling weird and said he thought he could feel worms moving around and legitimately wanted to know what to do. Tape his butthole and hope there's no pinworms. Not me, but I used to date a woman who worked at a sex shop. Every single day she would come home and rant about having had to desperately dissuade someone from doing something to their own butthole that would put them in the hospital. I have a friend that's a nurse. Every week she rants about getting these idiots in the hospital, and the lies they tell. I fell on it, naked. More one guy who didn't understand that bestiality was illegal and, therefore, we didn't have any pee featuring donkeys. Otherwise many male customers who didn't understand the difference between sex worker and sex shop worker. Former sex shop worker here. I'll tell a story that kind of fits this. At our store we sold an array of dildos. Some gag gifts, all shapes and sizes and colors etc. The largest one by far was called the Great American Challenge. It is a purple behemoth that I'm fairly certain is girthier than my arm. I'm a skinny guy. One day this guy comes in asking for a big gag dildo for his friend. I show him the big cheap ones. They are about $20 but large. Still smaller than Great American Challenge though. He says he wants something even bigger. I tell him there's nothing bigger that's in that price range. He then asks to see the bigger ones anyway, regardless of price. I show him the Great American Challenge and tell him the price is $70. Dude gets wide-eyed and buys it right away. He says, and I quote, "This will be great gag gift as a paperweight." Now we get the gag gift cover up quite often. Girls use it all the time to buy for bachelorette parties. You aren't fooling anyone, ladies. But this guy using it with our largest dildo was not surprising. I assumed, however, that he knew what he was doing. About an hour later I get a call from what is clearly the same guy. I know it's him because he says he just bought a purple dildo from us that is very large. And that's only the Great American Challenge. We sell them once every couple months at best. He asks me what's the best way to use it. Confused I ask if he has any prior experience with smaller toys. He says no. This is his first time. I advise him to not use the toy and start smaller, and say that's about all the advice I can give you. He then one-ups himself and asks if he needs lube or if petroleum jelly is good enough. Of course you need lube, what the frick man, I reply. He says, well, I don't have any, dang. Guess I'll just wing it. Thanks for the advice, and he hangs up. I don't know whatever happened to that guy, but I'm assuming he ended up in the hospital with quite the story. No idea how it got that far up my butt. Doc, I must have slipped and fell. I once spent 20 minutes desperately trying to get a guy to buy enough lube after he told me that his girlfriend insisted that he get some, because his initial attempt was him spitting on his dong and shoving it in her butt. I'm a salesperson, but I'm just being kind when I tell people to buy more than they think they need. He blew off my advice and bought a $1 foil packet of lube. My butthole clenched so dang hard just then. Who the frick thinks a bit of spit will be fine for a hole that doesn't self-lubricate or stretch easily? I had a dude ask me if a certain toy was for vaginal use or for the uterus because he thought it was two different holes. Client was a middle-aged, married man. Kept hassling for no condom and I kept refusing. He asked why I wouldn't do it because surely I'm on a tablet to stop myself getting pregnant. I explained that condoms were important in protecting against STDs. He literally did now know what an STD was. I spent a while explaining to him and he started to worry that his wife would find out he was seeing sex workers because he hadn't been using condoms. He said, so if I catch something, my wife could get it too? That's actually pretty scary. I'd hate to be his wife. My friend is a sex worker. She asked me if it was normal to have itching and green discharge down there. She actually didn't know STDs existed but had heard of AIDS. Jesus Christ. In the shop I work at I get a lot of women who are curious about Kegel Bengwa balls but wonder what happens if they get lost in their vagina. I always gently explain that well that's not possible, or at least highly unlikely. There's always questions about anatomy, but we just do our best to inform people. I worked at a local sex shop last summer. Women always asked help from me because the only other person working was a guy. They wanted some sex toy but didn't know exactly what. I would usually ask something along the lines of what makes you come easier, clitoral stimulation or something inserted in you. I was there only for 2 weeks and during those 2 weeks, at least 7 women said oh, I've never had an orgasm so I don't know. Most of them were women under 25 but the oldest was around 35-40 and married. That poor woman. Oh, I've never had an orgasm so I don't know. That is the most depressing thing I've heard today. Many people who come into my shop are under the impression that if it can go in the vagina, it's also intended good for anal use. The list includes Bengwa balls, massive dildos, and a wee vibe chorus, a toy that's made to kinda clip onto the vagina by having one side against the vulva and one that goes inside and presses against the vaginal wall. Bonus round. An older woman came in once who was appalled at everything in the store, went to the dildos and loudly asked what are these even for? Mom, come on, mom, come on. I worked at a sex shop for 3 years and the thing that irked me the most were people who were willfully ignorant about lube. Even after I'd explain why it's good for you they'd be like nah that's for old ladies. For either anal or vaginal sex it's there to reduce friction and make it more comfortable safe. Many men and women have this misconception that if a woman cannot produce enough moisture on her own then there's something seriously wrong with her. It's actually very common for women of all ages to use lubricant from time to time, either because they're nervous and inexperienced, having very rough sex, or because their bodies simply don't produce that much. It would hurt me to think of all the women, especially inexperienced ones, getting their canals just freaking shredded because men or other women are shaming them for needing lube. Working there taught me that a surprising amount of people are very stupid selfish lovers. Be careful out there folks. I had an ex who hated lube. She wanted me to fist her, and when I'd try to lube up she'd ask me to towel off my hand because it's too slippery. I want to really feel it. I've got huge hands. BTW. It was phone sex, but the guy frickin'. I spent 3 hours describing to him how a girl would pee in the woods. Whether he knew or not is beside the point. 3 hours describing it while trying to be frisky at the same time. Dudes are wild sometimes. Squatting, not that difficult of a concept. I had a guy who wanted to meet up for full service, but said he didn't want me to be disappointed by how small his dong was. He said, "Don't worry though, I'll bring a banana for us to use so you'll still be satisfied." Keeping your potassium levels up is important. When I worked in a sex shop, lots of guys would come in looking for a gift for their female SO. I would often ask them if they were looking for a toy with clitoral or G-spot stimulation. The number of guys who looked at me blankly and went, "What is clitoral? I just want something to put in her," or a version of that statement, never failed to surprise me. There's been a couple comments like that, and man do I feel awful for those women. I work in a lingerie sex shop and wow, I didn't realize how many people lack a basic understanding of things in general. First thing that springs to mind is a woman who kept breaking a couple's toy, shaped like a U so women can wear it internally during intercourse and it'll also sit on the clitoris, by using it like a crab claw to pinch her clitoris. She must have returned 3 of these by the time we figured out what the heck she was doing. I also once had a gentleman tell me we were scamming people by making them think the G-spot was a real thing. I assured him that as a woman it was very much real, but he wouldn't budge and just stood there with his unhappy looking wife telling me doctors had proved it was a myth. Another weird thing is the amount of people that want to buy a bullet vibrator to stick in their butthole. Do not do this. Instead of a butt plug, People who want to use Dettol spray or a dishwasher to wash their sex toys instead of buying a cleaning spray, and men that show up to buy a bra and then look shocked when they realize they need to know their other half's bra size. I had one gentleman come in looking specifically for a butt plug and ended up bringing a rather large one to the counter. For purchases like this, I used to check in first time in case I can change it out for a product that might be better. He proceeded to tell me that it was for his girlfriend. It was her first time, and he brought up the biggest blackest plug we had in rubber, not even medical grade silicone which we carried. So at this point I give my crash course on butt stuff. You need lube. Go slow. If you need an idea of how careful you should be with her, you can practice on yourself. I mean, between the two of you it'll probably feel better for you because you're the one with the prostate. That's real. I thought that was just something the guys in West Hollywood were telling me to get in my pants. I also had another elderly gentleman come in for an oddly specific vibrator. It wasn't one he knew existed, but he came in describing something small and bullet shaped. So we go around and nothing I show him is small enough until our cheap one's about the size of my thumb, to which he says, "It's perfect." Then a moment of horror settled in for me and I politely inquired about how he intended to use this. He was going to stick it in his wife's butt. For anyone who doesn't know, your anal tract naturally pulls stuff up into you. That's why butt plugs have stoppers, and I saved them from a very, very unfortunate hospital visit. I have one in reverse. I went into a sex shop in a gay area of Sydney. I explained to the guy that I hadn't really used a dildo before. I'm a guy, and he suggested a rabbit dildo. I told him I don't have a clitoris that needs stimulating, and he just went silent and didn't suggest any more dildos. I could understand him thinking it was for a girlfriend, but I was in a gay area and explained to him it was for me. Guy's gutted. He was told by his boss to upsell rabbits because they've got a huge backstock. I have a regular client who keeps asking me to finger my urethra. I've never even done sounding. That's not something people just do. No prep. Not only lack of prep, but a finger would be painful AF regardless. Not to mention probably unsanitary. I don't want a vibrator. Those loosen your vagina. Sometimes I got people who didn't want anal toys because they had that fear, which isn't true. BTW, the muscles just are conditioned to relax more. But this was a mother coming in and saying this. Similar to the 100 different dongs will stretch her out, but the same dong 100 times is just fine. Proud. Never worked there, but when I was 16 I worked next door to one. I was outside most of the day loading mulch, and around noon every day I would see 5 to 6 white collar workers walk in for 5-10 minutes and walk out with nothing. Time went by, and when I turned 18 found out they were spanking it in the DVD testing room. Adult store employee here. It's mostly men not realizing the difference between a standard butt plug and a prostate massager. Coming up with a prostate massager and asking if it's a good plug for their girl. Then me explaining how it's for biological men, and then having to explain further how they themselves have a P-spot in their butt. Also, with dongs and some rabbit style vibrators. The material is a non-body safe, TPE-TPR. It is porous and holds bacteria which can cause infections and is recommended use with a condom. Seriously, please invest in high quality toys. I know money is tight sometimes, but you shouldn't risk your health for an orgasm. It isn't worth it. You would be freaking astonished the amount of men that are convinced that dong enlargement cream exists. Then you have to spend half an hour explaining how biology actually works. And that they aren't going to find a magical cream to make them 10 inches like the internet tells them. Then they tell you a friend has some and you want it. And you just look into the CCTV camera like on The Office as you try not to smash your face against the counter in utter disbelief at people's idiocy. If dong enlargement cream pills whatever actually existed and worked, you wouldn't have to order them from a sketchy magazine or website or even a sex shop. There would be an entire aisle for it in the Walmart pharmacy section. Dom sex worker. Formerly, I was hired by couples twice, and on both occasions I was basically there to be their weird naked instructor on how to spice up their sex life, when in reality, their marriages were probably failing due to other reasons and I was some fantastical attempt to save it. Which brings me to the time an adult woman asked me, a very depressed lesbian, to show her how to stimulate her husband's prostate. I feel some sort of kinship as an IT worker who regularly gets asked to design people's business logos or code them a website when all I do is fix hardware. Well, it was common to ask guys buying stuff for their girlfriends if their girl was a clit, G-spot, or both kind of girl. Most of the time they didn't know. Customers firmly placing their thumb above my pubic bone, not moving it, watching me have literally no reaction, and then believing that they brought me to orgasm by doing that. That is a step beyond treating the clitoris like a button to smash. Online sex worker here. It's crazy how many men assume all women can. CM by penetration, do anal, squirt, gape, fit big toys in either hole, do double penetration, ride dong in certain positions, deep throat. I dread to think how their sex life goes when they expect these kind of things from every amateur pee maker. Sex shop worker here. I answered a call from a man who had purchased a sounding device. It goes in your urethra if you didn't know. He couldn't get it out. I asked him if he'd used lube and he told me no and that it was starting to hurt. He asked if he should yank it. I just had to tell him to contact his doctor. I hope he got it out. This is from my sibling. She had to explain the basics to a couple who were waiting until marriage and had just gotten married. They weren't well educated the practice. Sister ran over all the basic options for them to try out. I hope it worked out well for them. Edit. Retail worker. BTW. This is Home Depot. I used to work at a sex shop. The amount of people that didn't know that latex condoms break down when using oil-based lube is astounding. Had to explain it multiple times a day. Pro tip. If you don't know what lube to use for something, go water-based. One more. I had a daytime regular named Terry. This was 20 years ago, but I'll never forget this old guy's name. He would stop by for 10 minutes, grab a VHS from the bargain bin and attempt to flirt with me while checking out. One day I noticed Terry is in the male enhancement section and he's been there a minute. I wander back and ask if he has questions. He is holding a penis pump and very seriously asks if I could handle something that big. I laughed out loud. That usually shut down any advances, but Terry kept at it. He told me there were obviously women who could handle it or we wouldn't sell them. Then Terry told me that his dong no longer got hard, but if he were able to keep suction on it while he put the toy himself inside a vagina, that just might work. He never came back into the store after his purchase that day. Maybe it worked, or maybe some woman killed him for trying to shove a fricking penis pump inside her. There are both pills and wearables for that. No need to resort to inserting the entire penis pump. So when I was like 15 I was in a knife smoke sex shop and some dude was in the sex part of the shop and he was buying a dildo and kept asking if it was long enough to reach his girlfriend's clit and how deep inside a woman is her clit and I was like, honey, how are you 30 something years old not knowing what a clit is? I offer my sympathies to the girlfriend. This doesn't quite count but kind of, before the twist ending. So I worked in a sex shop when I was 18. They had a staff party and being the new recent hire, I had to stay and maintain the shop. Fair enough. Senior maid junior must. I get this girl come in at like 10:30, half hour before closing. She wants a dildo but says she's never bought one before and needs assistance. Sure. I mean, I hadn't even owned one myself but I had been there a month or so and had read the packaging while stocking so I knew a bit. Also we were encouraged to look up sex toy related articles on the work computer during slow periods. So okay, we go over. She says she's looking for something without vibration as that doesn't do much for her. Straight up dildo. So I show her a few but she's not interested. Bigger, she says. My ex was big and I need something similar. I miss him. Okay, so we go bigger. I'm pointing out 7-inch dongs and whatnot and she's like no, bigger. So I point out a honking 8-inch one. She sighs and hems and haws and then says no, bigger. What about this one? Near the bottom of the rack was something with a name relating to a horse. I can't remember the actual name. It was like an 11.5 inch long dildo. Not only is that most certainly a fetish thing and definitely not something her ex had. This girl was like 5 feet and 100 pounds. But that's what caught her eye. So me, being all professional but internally thinking B you wanna die, I explain to her the size and the girth and give her a light warning of potential medical hazards if used improperly. She breaks out laughing. And then my bosses walk in. Turns out she worked there as well, but since we were a one-person staff establishment, I had never met her. She was sent in as a joke, her phone on the whole time so the owners could hear what I did when this tiny-ass chick asked for a horse dong. Well, congratulations on passing their professionality test. Dang. I can return this, right? You guys can just clean it and put it in a new package or whatever. If the industry worked like that, everyone would have hepatitis. Gross. Number. I received this blow up doll as a joke gift, and for a joke I blew it up and tried to frick it, but it's really uncomfortable and doesn't feel realistic at all. It's just for a joke though, so I really don't want it anyway. I would never use it, I just tested it as a joke. Sure, buddy, sure. One blessed girl, studying the bondage rope with a furrowed brow and tiny frown. How do you get the guy's dong inside you with all the rope tied around it? Try this premium brand of lube. What kind of pee are you watching? Exactly. My partner wants a toy, but I'm insecure with the idea of them fricking a piece of silicone that doesn't look like my crotch. Look at this photo of my genitalia and help me find something to match. They always had genital warts, and they always ended up buying either the tiny teen pocket pee with no discernible labia, or the 11 inches ramrod with huge juicy balls. How we delude ourselves. A memorable old guy who walked with a cane and paid for his bi-weekly $2.5 DVDs with hundreds and only hundreds. I want to see close-ups of pussies, but I want your guarantee that there will be no visible anus in any shot in this film. If you won't guarantee that I won't see something I won't like, I will never shop here again. If you're not willing to get within 3 inches of a butthole even in your fantasies, you're never going to. Oh, I see why you need the pee. Very obviously 30 plus yo dude. Sobbing openly. My mom will murder me if she finds out I bought a dildo. Please help me find something I can put in my butt without her knowing. I sold him an Alaris plug, but I'm concerned about why his mom had such vigilant access to his butthole. Countless dudes buying black rhino pills. This is supposed to make your dong bigger and let you frick way longer. Countless women buying numbing lube spray cream. This is supposed to make his dong feel smaller and make it so you can get it over with way faster. Anyone shopping for a Hitachi? I heard these will make your clit die, go numb, lose nerves, fall off. They all bought one eventually anyway. Group of younger girls come in super vanilla looking bunch but grabbing gifts for a bachelorette party. Also some gifts for the bride. Well, initially I thought they were getting the bride all gag gifts, like the biggest rubber dildo we had, a rubber fist, for fisting, and not the one with the pointed fingers, just a fist, the 5XL rabbit, etc. So they come to get rug up and I bring up the joke aspect of the stuff and how she will get a kick out of all this. No one is laughing. Turns out the bride had a baby and these lovely ladies thought this is what you use once you have a kid. Mind you, they all swore up and down her baby was huge, and the bride was a petite gal. Also they had zero word from the bride that she was rocking the XXL Wagyu either. So yeah, talked him all out of it and into more regular sized things, with only one as a joke, just in case. Saw one of them a few months later and told me she loved all the gifts and laughed about the big one, as in her words would have split me in two. They never even discussed how she had the baby naturally and needed 0 stitches either. Go freaking figure. Sex worker here. The amount of clients who ask me how many times I came from some thirsty jackhammer fricking for 2 minutes are laughable. Baby, if I came you would definitely know it. I have an anatomically correct dong bong. I posted a cheeky video of myself using it on my Snapchat. A gentleman messaged me to register his disappointment that I had not used my vagina to smoke from it. I'm still not sure if he was joking or not. I was honestly too scared to ask. I guarantee if you responded sarcastically, he would have asked for a video of it. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.